Pope Leo XIV just met with the president of Israel, Andrew Herzog, and the internet is abuzz on the photos. And this recalls our previous show from 2 days ago, where we talked about the photo, the now infamous photo of Pope Leo XIV and James Martin, the Jesuit, who is a very big advocate for the L and the Qs and the Bs and all those, and the Ts. And the problem with that is we had the T act of violence last week in a Catholic church at a Catholic mass, and the optics are horrible. And I was looking at this and also thinking back on the show that I just did on James Martin and reading comments from people, and they're saying things like, oh, well, if you look at the picture with the president of Israel, and by the way, Netanyahu is the prime minister, this is the president. Look at this. He's not smiling. He's frowning, but he is wearing the red mozzetta. So he's sending us a sign that he bears both swords. He's over Israel. He has temporal power, and he's not happy. So he's dressed like this. And then some people say, oh, if you look at the image with James Martin, Pope Leo, he has a slight smile, a Mona Lisa smile. And so maybe he likes James Martin, or maybe he's preparing his downfall. And the whole thing, as I reflected on it, is kind of ridiculous. And Gavin Ashenden, who I've been on the show and he's been on my show, he's a former Anglican priest. I'm a former Anglican priest. We're both Catholic now. He wrote a really good article on his Substack talking about this phenomenon of papal pictures. And he kind of just cuts through everything. So I want to read parts of his reflections today and give you some of my own reflections on my own personal experience with photos and people trying to interpret photos. And then we're going to do live Q&A. And just a reminder, as you can tell by the screen, I am surrounded by Christian Patriot because we are in launch week. And I'm telling you, ladies, you need to get a copy for your husband. I've been tracking some of the clicks on emails and whatnot, mostly males buying the book, which I find fascinating. That's a good sign. We need strong male leadership, patriarchs, patria, patriot, pater. It's fantastic. So, but ladies, don't be afraid. Get a copy of Christian Patriot. It's already a #1 bestseller on Amazon. We're moving into the first weekend, and the numbers look really good. We're hopeful that we make the New York Times bestseller list. That would be awesome. And y'all are the ones that do that. I write the book. Y'all put in the numbers. So thanks to every one of you that pre-ordered Christian Patriot, everyone on the launch team, everyone writing reviews, everyone buying one or more copies. I thank you. I salute you. You are Christian Patriots. This is not the end. This is just the beginning, but we wanted to have a big opening weekend, and y'all have done it. It's been fantastic. Great numbers, Amazon, and lots of interest and tons of interviews. I've done 2 interviews today. I think I did 3 yesterday. I got, I think, 3 or 4 tomorrow. I'm just trying to get out there and spread the news that we can't have the wall of separation of church and state anymore. That's a big part of this book. All right. It's condemned by Pope Pius IX. The wall of separation of church and state, articulated by Thomas Jefferson, who was a deist, who denied the resurrection of Jesus Christ, denied the Trinity, and wrote his own Jeffersonian Bible, devoid of miracles. That Thomas Jefferson is the one who articulated the wall of separation of church and state, and we're going to tear down that wall. We need a healthy integration of church and state. If we don't get to that, we will lose civilization. And by civilization, I mean Christendom. Civilization is not Western civilization. Being in a certain direction on a compass doesn't make a civilization great. What makes a civilization great, as I argue in the book, is Jesus Christ and Christianity. And we had a Catholic consensus. We had a fraternity of Christian nations that was powerful in the world. We could fight Islam and we could defeat it back then. Now, because of Protestantism, because of schisms, and because of just our lack of understanding of how the state should operate in connection with the church and with faith in Christ, we're losing that culture war to degeneracy, to sexual perversions, to Islam. Wake up. Go walk around outside. Islam, Hinduism, it's all coming. All right, so this book is a call to arms. You need to renew your mind and understand Christian politics according to Augustine, Aquinas, the church fathers, scripture. And then I give you 12 steps to create one nation under God. Every single one of you can begin to implement the 12 steps. And they're primarily virtue ethics. It's not write a letter to your congressman, though you can do that. Much bigger things to do. Get your copy today. Christian Patriot, #1 bestseller. It is on sale today, 14% off on Amazon. I think it was selling well, and Amazon is discounting it. We didn't ask them to do it. Amazon is discounting it. You can get the link below. Click any of the link below. We have signed copies that I've signed with Harrison Butker. So get your copy. All right, let's go back to these pictures. Before I talk about Gavin Ashton's, I think, brilliant article and take on papal photos, I've experienced in my own life, people take photos of me. I'm not as famous as Pope Leo by a long shot, by a millionth of a degree. But people stop me in airports or at conferences or after church or occasionally in the grocery store or at the gym and say, "Hey, are you Marshall, that guy on YouTube?" Yeah. And occasionally they say, "Can I get a photo?" And we take them. But I've seen people sometimes post photos. I don't even remember them sometimes. And they make a big deal about it. So once a guy posted a photo on social media, and it was him, I presume, and me at a conference. And he writes in there, "Look how uncomfortable Dr. Marshall looks next to me because he knows who I am and he knows that I'm Eastern Orthodox and he's uncomfortable." And I was thinking to myself, I don't know who you are. I had no idea that you were Eastern Orthodox. You came up to me and asked to take a photo. And then he's looking at the photo and trying to get people to look at the photo and say, clearly he's uncomfortable because he's next to an Eastern Orthodox person. And so I understand a little bit this idea of looking at photos almost like a Ouija board and trying to, interpret, what does this smile of Leo mean, or what does this face mean? And we go through every single papal photo, and there are tons of papal photos. And here's one of them. That's me right there with Pope Francis. This is when I gave him infiltration. I've been to Mass with Pope Francis at least one time, and I've shaken his hand twice. I've spoken to him once. This is the time that I had a pretty good discussion here with him about infiltration. But a lot of people have taken this photo and they've analyzed it. Look, Marshall's smiling. Pope Francis is smiling. They are working together. This is a conspiracy. Look how happy Pope Francis is talking to Taylor Marshall. And look how happy Taylor Marshall is. Clearly, they're working together. And then a lot of people have taken this photo and they post it and they say, look at the handshake. This is a Freemasonic handshake. Taylor's finger is pointed slightly forward, and then his other hand is on top of Pope Francis's hand. And the way Francis is actually holding the book towards the camera, and they break this whole thing down. And in reality, this was a, brief meeting, and this is what the camera captured. So I don't think any of the things that I articulated are true. But again, people take the photos and they draw massive conclusions. And yes, that is the very first printed copy of Infiltration right there. Pope Francis got the first copy, and he was very friendly talking about it. He looked at the front cover, and he noticed that the foreword was written by Bishop Athanasius Schneider, and I could see his face kind of go, He didn't like that. He opened the book up. He went through the entire table of contents, looked at it, asked me some questions. He turned the book over, looked at the back. So we actually did talk about it, and he actually did take an interest in the book Infiltration. So that was an interesting moment in my life, something I'll never forget. So anyway, to go back to photos. Now, if you watch the show, you know that I like to talk about Israel and I like to talk about popes. And so, we got them both. And I did an interview today with Royce White over on Steve Bannon's channel. And we talked about Israel and we talked about dispensationalism. And I just want to take a moment, maybe 2 minutes, to break down this problem about Israel and dispensationalism. Darby, he is a Protestant pastor in the early 1800s. There's all kinds of charismatic women in ecstasy, having visions, the Holy Spirit speaking through these women, very Montanists. And through these revelations and through his own Bible study, he comes up with the theology of dispensationalism. Dispensationalism briefly teaches that God has plan A, dispensation 1, and he has plan B, dispensation 2. And dispensation, the first dispensation, plan A, is for Israel. It's for Jews. And that was always God's plan. He chose the Jews, and that's the plan. And he sent Jesus to be the king of the Jews, but there was a hiccup. Most of them rejected Jesus. And so God the Father said, okay, we will go to plan B. We'll go to the Gentiles, and then when the time is right, I'll rapture the believing Gentiles off the world. That's where the rapture comes from. And I'll go back to working with the Jews and convert the Jews under the time of the Antichrist with the rebuilt temple. That is dispensationalism. And since the establishment of the state of Israel, the secular state of Israel in 1948, which has no biblical continuity or no continuity with biblical Israel, it does not meet any of the constitutional marks as found in Deuteronomy, because Moses is the one who wrote the Constitution for Israel. It's called the Book of Deuteronomy. Also, as I talk about in Christian Patriot, the most cited work by the founding fathers was not Locke or Hobbes or Rousseau. The most cited document by the founding fathers of America was Deuteronomy, because it's the Constitution of Moses. Anyway, that's dispensationalism. And unfortunately, Protestants, because they don't have a visible church, they don't have a earthly manifestation, they don't have a capital like the Vatican in Rome. They don't have a visible hierarchy. They don't have a universal structure that connects them together. They have been deceived, and I think it is the spirit of the Antichrist. They've been deceived to accepting the state of Israel as the visible church. The irony of that is President Herzog, Prime Minister Netanyahu, the irony is they don't like Christians. They like Christian money. They like military assistance from America, which is a majority Christian nation, but they don't like Christianity. And so you have evangelicals. Oh, sorry. Darby's the one that came up with that. Schofield, at the turn of the 1900s, he left his wife and child. He was a drunk. He was convicted and in prison for fraud, bank fraud, bounced checks. He was a real scoundrel. Then he published the Schofield Reference Bible, King James Bible with Schofield's notes, and he kind of plagiarized Darby's theology. And so he took that dispensational theology and inserted it into a Schofield Bible, which was very popular. Maybe, I haven't fully researched it, but maybe funded by certain people who are favorable to Israel. I'll just say that, okay? So we live in a situation where you have Republicans like Ted Cruz and even like Donald Trump, who has Paula White as his right-hand woman, his spiritual leader, Paula White, who is a false prophet, and she is a dispensationalist, and she is speaking in tongues and having visions and claiming all of this authority as a woman pastor, as a woman preacher. It's actually quite embarrassing. And as a result of that, the conservatives and the Republican Party have drifted into dispensationalism. And you saw it on Tucker Carlson. Ted Cruz says, well, when I was in my Bible classes, Sunday school, they taught us if you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. And if you curse Israel, you'll be cursed. And Tucker Carlson says, well, where's that in the Bible? And Ted Cruz says, well, I don't know. We could look it up. And he's like, you're basing your entire foreign policy and advocacy for Israel based on theology that you learned in Sunday school, and you don't even know where in the Bible it is. And then Tucker says it's actually in Genesis 12. And if you go to Genesis 12, this is where God institutes the Abrahamic covenant. This is the covenant of God with Abraham, where he says, I choose you, Abram. I change your name into Abraham. This is always very key in the Bible. When God institutes a new covenant, he changes name of those he's entering covenant into. Of course, in the New Testament, we have Simon. His name is changed into Peter. Hat tip to my Catholics out there, papacy. He changes Abram to Abraham, and he says, those that bless you will be blessed, and those that curse you will be cursed, and to your seed. It does not say Israel. Now, how do we interpret that? Well, we interpret that with the New Testament. So we turn over to Galatians, and St. Paul says that all those who are in Christ receive the blessings of Abraham and his seed, because his seed is not many, his seed is one, and it's Jesus Christ. So if you are in Jesus Christ, you are blessed. You receive the blessings of Abraham. That's the New Testament theology. That's Catholic theology. Not looking at Genesis 12 and saying, oh, if you bless Israel, which was recreated in 1948, you'll be blessed. And this is what Paula White and these televangelists teach. If you give money to Israel through them, through the Protestant evangelical preachers, God's going to bless you. You're going to get a better job. You're going to get a promotion. You're going to get a better house. You're going to get a bigger car. Your sickness is going to go away. You got to give money to Israel through us. You got to give money to Israel through us, and God's going to bless you. This is the scam. This is the scam they run. That was more than 2 minutes, wasn't it? It was. So now we have Pope Leo meeting with the president of Israel, Herzog. And, he doesn't look happy. He does not look happy. And I think Herzog, I don't know if directly, but I think the regime of Israel is guilty of crimes against humanity. I think what's happening in Gaza is unjust. Do I believe Hamas is good? No, I don't. But when you look at what they have done to innocent people, civilians, children, women, 2 women shot at the Catholic Church in Gaza by snipers. Oh, that was an accident, they said. Really? 2 snipers shot 2 women in the courtyard of the church? That was an accident. A tank shot a missile into the Catholic Church, just missed the cross. People died. The pastor's leg was injured. Oh, that was an accident as well. They attack the Eastern Orthodox Church. Oh, that was an accident as well. They're having a lot of accidents that are hurting, killing Christians and destroying their churches. So for Herzog to come in and try to be bros and be cool with Pope Leo, that ain't going to fly. That ain't going to fly. Now, does his facial expression or what he's wearing, is it a secret code to us? I don't know. I don't think so. And I want to share with you this article by Gavin Ashenden. And it says, How to Trap a Pope, the Battle for Optics and the Power of Publicity. And here, Gavin Ashenden has a really good analysis of the way that liberals use optics and use media for their example. And he says that conservatives are not so good at it. So here's what Gavin said. He says, the left is good at optics. The trads aren't. The progressives, much attracted to the political rather than the spiritual, where they feel less at home, are excellent at spin and presentation. In fact, political manipulation is a high art on the left. So it should come as no surprise that the most notorious of all LTQBT plus advocates, Father James Martin, would set out to achieve the important and highly effective goal of obtaining from the papacy of Pope Leo an optical imprimatur that would terrify all Christian conservatives. So he's saying that this is a attempt to get the imprimatur for the ministry of James Martin. Now, when I first read this, I was skeptical. I said, oh, come on. Is this Pope-splaining? Come on, Gavin, are you Pope-splaining on us? But then I read on, and as I considered his points here, I thought he has a good thesis here. Here's what he says. And he says, and they, conservatives, traditionalists, are terrified. Many are in meltdown. I hope the following analysis may help calm the nerves, steady the rosaries, and soothe troubled hearts. Using his many connections inside the Vatican, where he already had secured audiences with Pope Francis, Father Martin gained an interview with Pope Leo a few days ago on September 1st. I'm going to skip ahead here a little bit, all right? And he talks about how easy it is to get a photo with the Pope. Everywhere the Pope is, there's photographers. And they upload all those photographs to a website at the Vatican, and you can go and get those photos. So if you're close, if you're in proximity, you can get your picture with the Pope. All right. So he talks about a friend who, had a picture with the Pope, but because he was somewhat conservative and traditional, he didn't go and post it all over social media and use it as a strategy. And he says, this is exactly what James Martin is trying to do. And I'm going to scroll down here just a little bit here. In his accompanying article, Father Martin claimed, he encouraged me to continue my ministry. And then Gavin says, indeed, but with what words, we don't know. Perhaps he encouraged Father Martin in his sacramental life as a priest. You would hope and expect so, but that's not remotely the same thing as endorsing his LGBTQ plus advocate. Perhaps Martin has a ministry as a Jesuit. You would hope so. Perhaps Leo asked him about his life as a Jesuit and would be warmly appreciated, and so on and so on. Then James Martin says, Pope Leo has the same openness as Pope Francis on these issues. This, of course, is the precious goal of the spin doctor. A bold claim, but no evidence except the euphemistic words. He wants everyone to feel welcome. What Pope would not want everyone to feel welcome? And then a disclaimer, because it looks like Pope Leo may not offer the publicity hungry LGBT groups arriving at the Vatican on September 6th an audience. In that case, Father Martin would look a bit silly, having made such dramatic claims over Pope Leo's commitment to openness and welcome to their community. So he slips a disclaimer in. Now, this is the interesting part. We are warned that he needs to explain to his followers that the Pope has other priorities, such as the peace processes in Ukraine, Gaza, and Myanmar, and there's no need to worry if he does not intervene much on the LBT issues. Suffice it to know that he is well aware of them. And then Gavin says, you don't need to be a cynic to smell disingenuous here. This is damage limitation. Why does there need to be damage limitation? Because Father Martin claimed too much, and he knows that he has. Quote, for my part, I offered him some suggestions on what dioceses and parishes might do in terms of welcoming these kind of Catholics, the L's and the P's and the T's, which I framed in terms of 5 steps, aware that in some dioceses, the churches are still at the first and second step. And then Gavin says, the Pope made no response to this. How do we know? And Gavin has a good point here. Because if he had done something more than listen in polite silence, Father Martin would have publicized it widely. No response does not amount in anyone's language to an affirmation. That's interesting. If Pope Leo in that meeting had said, James Martin, I want you to know that I am 100% lockstep with Pope Francis, or I love what you're doing with LGBT, et cetera, Martin would have quoted it because Martin wants it. Martin is fishing. The fact that it's generic and the fact that he put out a disclaimer later on shows that all we really know that Leo told him was that he encouraged him in his ministry. Now, I have a problem with that because Martin's ministry is notorious and people know exactly what he represents. And you can't say, oh, Pope Leo, he's from Taiwan or he's from, I don't know, name a place, Poland. He doesn't really understand what's going on in American Catholicism. How would he know who James Martin is? He's from Chicago. All right. He definitely knows who Father James Martin is. Father James Martin is the most influential leftist Catholic priest in America, if not the world. And he sells a lot of books, and he's well known, and he has unlimited access to Pope Francis, and now he seems to have access to Leo. But I do think Gavin makes a good point, and that is, if Leo had said anything in the affirmative of Martin's so-called ministry, Martin would have quoted it. I've got beeps and all kinds of things going on here, and I don't know what's happening. And that's what I think is probably the take home here. And I think honestly, I don't think it's a cope, and I don't think it's a Pope splain. I think that, sorry, I'm going to close some of these things down so we don't have the beeps and the bops. Hopefully that does it. I think that Martin was maybe disappointed, but I still am concerned that Pope Leo would post the picture after the massacre in Minneapolis with someone who was confused about their gender and then bring up the picture of James Martin like this and post it to the world, even if it is just a picture and it doesn't mean that much. Just like when, the picture of me and Francis was posted, that didn't mean, oh, you could take this photo. You could say, oh, Pope Francis loves infiltration. Look how happy he is. He's holding the book to the camera. He loves it. He's shaking Taylor's hand. Obviously, Pope Francis is giving the imprimatur to the book, right? I don't think that's the case. So I'm going to open up to comments, to questions, and let me say one more thing. The reason that we are hyper analyzing all these photos is because the papacy of Pope Leo has been relatively quiet. He hasn't issued any really official documents yet. There's been appointments. There's been some sermons. But we haven't seen really, and he's made some good statements about marriage. He's made past statements against, I have this quote. Let me pull up this quote that I shared the other day. He has made some really good quotes. This one is a great one right here. It's the responsibility of government leaders to work to build harmonious and peaceful civil societies that can be achieved above all by investing in the family founded on the stable union between a man and a woman, a small but genuine society, and prior to all civil society. That's based. And this one right here, that one's a good one too, but now it's a good one. Hold on. This one. Western culture seeks to promote sympathy for beliefs and practices that contradict the gospel. For example, the homosexual lifestyle and alternative families made up of same-sex partners and their adopted children. That's a boom, right? That's not sympathetic. So I'm going to go to your comments. I'm going to go to your questions. Get a copy of Christian Patriot. If you want to buy a copy, it's on sale today, 14%. We want you to buy it, please, before the end of Friday. So today's Thursday. Go ahead and lock it in. It's on sale today. I don't know if it'll continue to be on sale. I don't get to decide that, but it is 14% off on hardback today. Get a hardback, get one for a gift, and let's go. Super chats are lined up. Lots of people are saying good analysis. They like it. So that's good. Intelligent observer, do you consider yourself a sede vacantis? I do not. I believe Pope Leo is the valid successor of St. Peter. iCatholic Mobile, one of our sponsors. Pope Leo is smart and a politician. He knew that there was a risk posing. This is not a pic of them talking by a paparazzi. It is a posed pic. Yes, Martin is leveraging this. Leo would have known he would. He's not naive. I know, iCatholic Mobile, but don't you think that we need Pope Leo to stop the politicking? James Martin is using Pope Leo to promote this. Pope Leo, all he has to say is, I support the church's teaching on human sexuality and marriage. And James Martin has said some things that might cause confusion. I just want the faithful to know that I support the traditional Catholic teaching from the scriptures and tradition. Boom, it's over. And there's also egg on Martin's face. I think that's what should happen, but I'm a dad on a webcam. I don't have any authority. I don't have any power. I don't have an advisory role. This is from Jesus, My King. Dr. Marshall, is it true Pope Leo is under investigation in Nuremberg trial for child? No, that's not true. And let me tell you, I've warned y'all before, there's a lot of sites that make AI videos about the Pope, and they've also made a ton of videos on Cardinal Sarah that are totally fake. And I've seen people referring to them and sharing them, and you need to be really careful. We are in the AI era, and it's not safe. So be careful what you read and be careful what you share. Make sure it's real people. I'm a real guy. This is not an AI bot. Real deal. I'm going to try to close some more tabs because there's something open that's going bong all during the show. And I have no idea what it is. It's not my phone. It's the computer. Interesting. All right. Back to your comments, questions. Oh, here's another super chat. Maybe that's what the church needs. Maybe that's what the church needs is a politician. No. We do need Catholic politicians. We do need that. But what we need is saints. We need saints, and we need clear biblical teaching. No equivocation. No, well, I believe marriage is between a man and a woman, but I also want to accept all families, etc. No. We need super duper clear teaching and stands from the Pope. Breaking news, y'all. Dr. Marshall is trad AI. I am fake news. Taylor Marshall is a bot. What if that happened? What if this was all a simulation? How would I prove to you right now that I am not an AI bot? You'd have to somehow ask me to do something that an AI bot would not do, like pick up a rosary. I got a rosary, you know? Even if you said, say something in Latin, the bot could do that. How would I prove to you that I am not a bot? Here's an interesting one. Latins and Frank says, Vance married a Hindu, Rubio's a Zionist, Biden as well. Biden, these are the Catholic politicians. Well, look, it doesn't have to be that way. All right, it's 2025. We're bringing up a new class. All right, it's no more GOP. It's no more Zionism. It's no more just make America great again. It's we are Christians. We are Catholics. We want Christendom. The further any society gets from Jesus Christ, whether it's Canada, France, America, the further you get from Christ, the worse your country gets. That has to do with violence. It has to do with birth rates, marriage rates, divorce rates, economic decline. Just name any meaningful stat. The further you get from Christianity, from Jesus Christ, the worse your society becomes. All right. It's not about Western civilization. It's about Christian civilization. There's nothing unique about being west of a certain longitudinal line. A certain longitude line. There we go. That's better. There's nothing magical about that. What we need is something sacramental. And what is sacramental is the mystical leaven of the Catholic Church that elevates society and civilization. So you have people willingly creating hospitals, universities, orphanages, all the social structure that you find emerging in Christian countries. Those countries only start adopting those things once Christians get there. And they're like, oh, hospitals, that's cool. Schooling, oh, wow, literacy, that's cool too. That comes with Christianity. And the further you get from Christianity, the further you get from order. Why? Jesus is the Logos. That's Greek for he's the divine word. He's the word of God. The opposite of Logos is chaos, also a Greek word. Those are the two ends of the spectrum. You have Logos, Jesus Christ, chaos. We are currently moving towards chaos. I'm saying we need Christian patriots to stop the momentum and push us back to Logos. I don't want to hear about being more like Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan had some great stuff. I talk about some good things, some bad things. Ronald Reagan was the very first American governor of a state who signed in the bill for no-fault divorce. Now, later, Ronald Reagan said that was a big mistake. He realized how wrong he was for doing that. We don't need to be more Reagan. We need to be more Christendom. We need not just America to be fueled by the message of Jesus Christ, but we need a confraternity, a federation of Christian states. This is one whole chapter in the book. We need foreign policy that encourages marriage, family, but Christian principles. We should be linking up. Our greatest ally should not be Israel, who's constantly drawing us into wars and who hates Jesus Christ. Our greatest ally should be Poland, who says Jesus Christ is the king. Our greatest ally should be emerging countries like Hungary, who are also trying to increase birth rates and cherish family. Our foreign policy and our alliances and our investments, we should be spending, instead of sending money to Israel so that they can have more jets and missiles and bombs, we should be sending money to protect Nigerian Catholic priests who are getting killed every single week, as well as nuns and lay people. These should be our priorities as citizens, as taxpayers. And this is what we have to get to. So I'm setting up a radical stance. I'm lifting high the cross, raising high the flag, and I'm saying conservatism must conserve Christianity. That's the basis of being a conservative. If you believe in separation from church and state, you're not with us. You're with AOC. AOC wants that. The Marxists want that. But if you want to infuse the culture with the Beatitudes and the Ten Commandments and the beauty of Christ's teaching about a man and a woman being in holy wedlock, a matrimony, and bringing up families and condemning no-fault divorce, creating a culture where women are told the most beautiful and honorable and highest thing you could do is have a child with your husband, have a baby with your husband. Forget being a career girl or a boss girl or climbing the ladder or being whatever, e-girl, riot girl, whatever it is, to be a mother, to be a mother. We honor you. We value you because you, in your womb, are building the next generation. We are going to hand over this civilization, this economy, these monuments, these cathedrals, these parishes, all of our success. We're going to hand that down to the next generation. And the women, their wombs, their maternal care, their love is rearing up the next generation of saints and warriors and heroes. We need a culture that magnifies the gift of motherhood. Matrimony means matris, of mother, munis, gift, office. This is what we have to do, people. It's time to get radical. People are going to say, "Oh, you don't want separation from church and state. You're just like Muslims. You're just like Iran. You just want to have, the Pope run the country." No, we don't want the bishop to be the mayor. We don't want the bishop to organize, city sewage and trash pickups. That's not what a bishop does. We're not calling for a complete collapse of the church and state. But we do believe, as Thomas Aquinas says, that grace elevates nature. Grace heals nature, right? Where does grace come from? From Christ through the church. The state is the natural organization of the commonwealth. So the church should be healing and elevating the state. That's the relationship. It's not a collapse like in Islam. The church is there as a pastor, as a shepherd, elevating the state. That is Catholic social teaching, right? That is Christian politics. It's the whole first half of this book, Christian Patriot. You got to buy this book. You just got to buy it. There's nothing like it. I don't know of any book like this. Everybody go buy 5 copies. Let's go. Let's go. New York Times. Let's go. New York Times bestseller. Super chat. Have you considered for your next book writing on dispensationalism and Zionism? Would love that. I have thought about that, actually. I do address it in my book, Antichrist and Apocalypse, because I have to go over covenantal theology. I have to explain how the book of Revelation relates to Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel. And I have to lay out the case that Jerusalem and Israel are harlots. Ezekiel especially says that Jerusalem in the Old Testament has become the whore, the harlot. Jerusalem has committed adultery against Yahweh, against God. And she is in violation of her marriage covenant with Yahweh. And that insight in Ezekiel, the prophet Ezekiel, is what is revealed in the apocalypse. So when you see in the book of Revelation, the whore of Babylon riding upon the beast, this is prophetic language that comes from the Old Testament. And I know people aren't all ready to hear that, but the whore of Babylon is Jerusalem. When Jerusalem crucified the Messiah, and they said, we have no king but Caesar. Jesus said, I'm your king. And they said, we have no king but Caesar. What the high priest and the Sanhedrin and the Jewish people said was, God is our husband. He is our king. And here you stand before us saying that you are God and you are our king. And we say in court, we have no king but Caesar. What they effectively said is our husband, Babylon, our husband is Babylon. Our husband is Rome. Our husband is the Caesar who worships idols and false gods. That's adultery. That's whoredom. That's fornication. That is breaking the covenant. And this is why Jesus always refers to himself as the bridegroom, right? And he's coming to woo the bride. Jerusalem was adulterous. It's a very hard teaching, but it's there. Get the book, Antichrist and Apocalypse, also a bestseller, available on Audible. But I do cover that dispensationalism in there. I just don't know if there's enough people who would you get a book about dispensationalism? Like, oh, I got to rush. And I mean, this book is like universal about politics and who we should be as Christian patriots. Would people say, oh, I just got to get that book on why dispensationalism is wrong? I don't know. I mean, you either love dispensationalism or you really think it's wrong. Maybe it would sway people. I'm not sure. I'll think about it. What the church needs is a Pope Pius X, 100%. We need that bad. Big time bad. All right. Since we're cooking right now, I'm going to take off my coat. It's warm. It's warm. This is a wool coat. Harrison Butker wrote the foreword of this book. This is also a Harrison Butker suit. Harrison Butker makes his own clothing. It's called Shepherd's Custom Clothing. And he's made me some really nice suits and jackets and blazers and stuff. Highly recommend it. Shepherds, I think shepherds.com or shepherdsclothier.com. Harrison Butker. Oh, that feels nice. That's good. Nike says, yes, adulterous and in exile. When I feel Peter is calling me again and feel the Pope interacting and spiritually connecting with me again like Francis did, I will wake again, now working on health. Nike, it's all about Jesus Christ. You need the Eucharist every single Sunday, and we all need confession. So don't neglect your spiritual health when you're working on your physical health. I don't know exactly what you meant there, but I just say that to everybody. Let me see. We got new super chats. Intelligent Observer. I enjoy your content, but I'm confused on your opinions at times. I get the sense of conservative moralism doctrine. Am I off on this or on point? I don't know what conservative moralism is. I'm talking about complete takeover of political institutions. I'm talking about Christian laws on the books. I'm talking about Christian monuments. I'm talking about crosses in the public square. I'm talking about 10 commandments at the courthouse. I'm talking about Baphomet is banned from public sight. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Christendom. I'm talking about a Christian nation, a Christian patriot. I'm not talking about be Christian conservative moralism. No, I'm actually against that. Conservative moralism. No, I don't want conservative moralism. You know, you go to the GOP, you go to the Republicans, and like everybody's on their third wife, and they're all about IVF, and they're all about people of the same gender adopting children and using IVF and using surrogacy to harvest and purchase children. I'm against all that. That conservative world, it's got to go. We have to speak against it. Super chat, Robert Lee. I agree. We need a Pope Pius X. The preconciliar popes had strong stances. The post-conciliar popes have this happy we are the world preaching. Yeah, we need some masculine grit, you know? We need, Slim Jim comes in, hey, Holy Father, can I get a picture with you? I'm doing my LGBT and all that. And say, no, Father Martin, we need to have a talk about that, actually. Kiss the ring first. All right. Now that that's over with, I am giving you a laicization for 1 year. I want you to take time off, and I want you to read the whole Bible, cover to cover, Genesis to Apocalypse. And I've also put together this reading list. I want you to read all that. At the end of the 1 year, I want you to come back, and I'm going to ask you some questions about Catholic moral theology. And if you pass, I'll reinstate you. If not, I'll permanently laicize you, defrock you. This is an act of mercy, and I think you have the choice to become a great priest and to defend the one true faith. That'll be all for now. See you in 1 year, James Martin. You know what? That's how we do business in the real world. I think that would be gracious. It'd be merciful. Here's 1 year off. Study it. Get back to me. In the meantime, be quiet. Centruzzi, is it realistic to push for change externally, culturally, politically, when it seems that we are fighting heresies within the church on basic teachings? It's a great, great question. Strategy number one in Christian Patriot, there's 12 of them. Strategy number one is personal conversion, personal orthodoxy, living in sanctifying grace. And I explain what that means and how to do it. It's just classic Catholic teaching. So we personally have to be converted. But if we're going to wait for there to be a moral purity in the hierarchy, a certain level of moral purity in the hierarchy, we're going to wait forever. There have been major wins in culture during centuries and periods where the papacy and the hierarchy were not exactly sanctified. The thing is the Catholic Church is one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. All the holiness and all the grace is being made available. The Eucharist in 2025 has the same power as it had in 1225. It's the same Jesus Christ. It's the same real presence, the same yesterday, today, and forever. So the power is there. The theology is there. The morality is there. We just need heroes to implement it through a life of sanctity, not through violence, not through coercion. I explain this in the book. It's not been the Christian way to bring about societal change through violent coercion. But can we lift up the voice? Can we lift up the banner? Can we say, I'm tired of degeneracy? Can Gen Z young men say, I don't want every pretty girl I see to find out that she's on OnlyFans or sending content on Instagram? Or yet again, the job went to an H-1B1 from India. Just the complete demoralization of Gen Z. They're not inheriting something that's good, true, and beautiful as it had been in the past. And they're demoralized. And I think they are a generation ready, the Zoomers, they're a generation ready to say, no, I don't want Ronald Reagan conservatism, as good as some of the things Ronald Reagan did. I want King Louis IX conservatism. I want Theodosian politics. That's what I want. I want integration of church and state. That's powerful. And I think the only way we're going to fight Islam and their birth rate, and the only way we're going to fight secularization and Marxism and degeneracy and OnlyFans. And did you see 19% of Gen Z says they're either L or a T or a B or a Q? 19%. That's 1 out of every 5 of them. You're walking down the street, you see Gen Z, 1 out of 5 says they got that rainbow flag. I'm telling you guys, just being Republican is not enough. It's not enough. President Trump has done some really good things. Overturn of Roe v. Wade, moving the country to focus on American first principles, but we got a long way to go. Everybody recognizes that Donald Trump is not acting from the position of the classical political theory that we find in Augustine, in City of God, or in Thomas Aquinas, in the Summa Theologiae. He's not operating from there. That's what we need, though. All right. Robert Lee, imagine if Pope Pius X was Pope today. Boy, it'd be cool. It would be awesome. I'd love to see that. But he's not. And you know what? He put us at this time for a reason. He chose you and me to be in 2025. That's where we're called to be. And so that's what we have to do. That's where we have to live. Super chat about wanting me to collab with Mike Pantil. Yeah, I'm open to it. But again, I also don't like super chat saying, will you collab with so-and-so? Because then you start, I don't know. The internet is a place you have to tread carefully sometimes. Oh, here we go. Cassie, as a Gen Z woman, I think you sympathize with young men, but not really young women. You mentioned every girl being on of which I haven't heard of in real life. Cassie, please don't think that about me. I have 8 children. I have adult sons and I have 2 adult daughters. And I am very aware of what's going on with the guys and with the girls. And let me tell, since you want me to talk about the girls, I'll talk about the girls. The girls, the good Catholic girls, many of which who have been saving themselves for marriage and are virgins, they're out there. And not only do they try to find a guy who believes the Catholic faith, goes to Mass every Sunday, but there's 2 other issues that young Catholic women like Cassie are struggling with. And that is, number 1, is he into porn? What's his relationship to pornography? How do you navigate that discussion and how do you really find out? Because there's a lot of horror stories out there. Women marry these guys and they're possessed by pornography. Now you're living in a nightmare. And then number 2, is this young man open to and excited about not using contraception and having a large family? All right. You meet a guy, he's Catholic, he goes to Mass, he seems pretty decent, and you say, how do you bring that up in a date? What's your take on birth control? Are you open if God would want you in your marriage to have 10 kids, are you open to that? Obviously that conversation has to happen, but to find a guy that says, yeah, that would be awesome. I'd love to have 10 kids and I'm going to work really hard and make money to make that happen. And also a guy who's not possessed by the porn demons. That's a tough one for you young ladies, Cassie, for Gen Z women. And then there's a whole other element in Gen Z where a lot of the guys are so demoralized that they've just accepted, I'm not going to date, I'm not going to get married, I give up, I tap out. That's also demoralizing for the young Gen Z women. And a lot of this is just the Marxist division of the classes. In this case, it's the division of the sexes. I think probably the healthiest enclave for young Gen Z men and young Gen Z women to meet in a safe place with some kind of built-in chaperone and societal structure within an enclave is a traditional Catholic church. And that priests are aware of, who is courting who. And then when things get serious and they pop the question, they go through the rite of betrothal, which we used to have before Vatican II. I don't know why we got rid of it. And then traditional Catholic marriages. And then they're receiving formation that you can't have sex before marriage. You can't have sex before marriage. You can't use contraception. You have to be chaste. No sexual activity before you actually say the vows. None. It's mortal sin. It's evil. The only place I think that that's going to happen is in traditional Catholic parishes where you have good priests and you have parents, and parents that are actively involved in the relationships of their children, which Joy and I have tried to be with our adult children. We have 4 adult children. So, Cassie, I understand, and I apologize if I have vocally been sympathizing more with the Gen Z males and not enough with the Gen Z females. As the father of 2 Gen Z females, I totally understand where you're coming from, and I do sympathize with you. It's tough for everybody in Gen Z, and we love you, and we pray for you. And then Cassie sends another super chat. Okay, I take it back. You're actually in touch. Cool. So yeah, Cassie, I think if you're a young woman, I don't know how old you are, but to navigate, you need the young men to be attracted to you and actually ask you out and get to know you. But then even when you're in that situation, you're still not in the clear because, if you were in the 40s or the 50s, is the guy addicted to streaming porn onto his hard drive was not a reality. Now, there was probably guys who had some pinups or weren't moral in their lifestyle, but it wasn't a pandemic. And then also the whole idea of contraception, probably since the 1920s, couples were cheating and using contraception. And then it became really popular with the birth control pill, 60s, 70s, 80s. Oh, and then the other one is he going to divorce me? Does he believe divorce is a trap door, is a way to get out? So yeah, you young ladies, you got it rough. And that's why being conservative is not enough. And being Republican is not enough. And yes, even MAGA is not enough. We need Christendom, which is Christianus Domus, the Christian household. Christendom is a Christian household. It's a federation. It's a fraternity. It's a brotherhood of nations that worship and love Jesus Christ. That doesn't mean there's not going to be conflict or problems. But at least we all are Trinitarian. At least we all believe in Jesus. At least we all baptize our babies. At least we all go to Mass on Sunday and worship on Sunday. That's what we need. So you need to be a Christian patriot, whether you are Gen Z, Gen, whatever's below them, AA, Alpha, Millennial, Gen X, that's me, Boomers, greatest generation, silent generation. You know what? It takes everyone to build a civilization. If we have the same beliefs about Jesus Christ, about the kingdom of God, about the sacraments, about the church, we can come together with the same beliefs about what the state should look like and how we should operate with the state. And that's what I'm challenging everyone to do. I know y'all are probably tired. He's always talking about the book, Christian Patriot. He's got it on the screen. He's got it on the desk. We're surrounded, but it's a big deal. It is a really big deal. And I think if we don't implement something like this, maybe someone next year will write one even better than mine. Great. If we don't implement something like this in the next 10 to 15 years, we're cooked, washed, chopped, done, gone. Muslims will outbreed us. The Marxist socialists will take over all governments, all states, cooked, washed, chopped, over. Sorry, Gen Z, we failed you. We should have been Christian patriots, but, we didn't. We didn't do anything, and we let the Marxists win, and we let the Muslims outbreed everyone, and now your life's even worse. Sorry. All right. That's a show. Appreciate all of you. Love all of you. Special thank you to the thousands of people who have bought Christian Patriot this week. My goal is for all of you, if you're going to buy it before Friday. That's when the tallies come in. Buy it before Friday at 5 p.m. I'd appreciate that. It's on sale today, 14% off at Amazon. Go over there, get a copy or two. You'll have it soon. Write a review. I'll appreciate it. And then let's talk about it. Let's do it. All right? Let's create a beautiful culture. Let's actually do it. Here's the good news. Christians are the majority in America. All right? It's not complete. It's not like we're 1% here and somehow have to figure it out. We are the majority. If we can come together, if we can renew our minds, if we can say, no more degeneracy, I want to live in a civilization that honors Christ and reflects the teachings of Jesus, we can do it. I really believe we can do it. All right, pray your rosary every day. If you don't pray the rosary, you're not on the team. And until next time, remember, our Lord Jesus Christ says, you're the light of the world and the salt of the earth. So go out there and be salty. God bless, Godspeed, and we'll see you tomorrow.